Hari Om.
Good evening to all and welcome once again to this next session of Kindle Live. Let's begin our session very quickly with prayers.
Om Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Hari Om to all once again. What glorious things that we are learning and knowing about of our own culture, our own heritage of the Sanatana Dharma, of Hinduism. And two of the most important aspects, the Om and mantras. In mantra, we have just seen that every mantra has a presiding deity. Whenever jap is undertaken, the form of the devta is to be maintained in front of the mind's eye. To facilitate this, we also have a meditation stanza called Dhyanalo. We have just read this and I am sure understood it also. The orthodox people believe that the jap required other things also to balance the amount of jap that we do. Other things meaning like homa and tarpana also. While there were other philosophical people who thought, very powerful ones also, that it is not necessary to do other rituals, but it is important to understand and follow the principles of what you are doing. Similarly, we know now that mantras are divided into two categories. Those whose meaning we need not know, we can only chant. The other type are the ones where we invoke gods. So when we invoke gods, we have to understand the meaning of the mantras very clearly. Also, mantras were in the form of poetry as well as prose. When they were in the form of poetry, they are called the Rika, as in Rigveda. And when they were in the form of prose, they were called the Yajus, of course, as in Yajurveda. Amongst all the mantras, we have seen that Om is the most powerful mantra of all. Why so? This we are understanding step by step. Maybe initially you find it all a bit much, but honestly there is not much to explain but a lot to understand. So let us once again go back to the Om and see what is Om and what is the Spotavada. We have just seen about the Spotavada, that it is nothing but Om itself. So I'll now give over to Jagdish to explain Om very nicely.
Thank you, Raj. We read further. In Om, the sound A, U and Ma are called matras or forms. There is also in Om the common principle called the amatra Om, which signifies the thing in itself running through and pervading the threefold phenomena of the waking, dreaming and the deep sleep state. Meaning, even when the sound is made and even in the silence, in and through every aspect, Om is prevalent. The law of memory is that the rememberer and the experiencer must be one and the same individual, or else memory is impossible.
Naturally, if I am the experiencer, it will be my memory.
So, as we can remember all experiences in all three different planes, there must necessarily be a single common factor which was a witness to of all the happenings in all the three planes.
I am the waker, I am the dreamer, and I am the
deep
sleeper. And how do I know I'm the deep sleeper? Because when I get up next morning, I know I had a very good sleep. So the common person in all the three is that I. So remember that common factor.
Therefore, there must be some entity within ourselves who is present in the waking world, who moves and illumines the dream, who is a distant observer in the deep sleep world, and yet who is not conditioned by any of the three of these three realms. This entity, conceived as the fourth state, the Turiya, is the real, the changeless, the intelligent principle.
So now we have been introduced to the fourth state, which is actually the state which is in and through all the three states. It is like the substratum for all the other three, which is called Turiya.
The syllable Om symbolizes both the spheres, A, the phenomenal, the visible sphere of the Jagat, wherein the manifestation of time and space appear and perish, means our world, and B, the transcendental, timeless sphere of the imperishable being, which is beyond yet one with it.
So shall we start reading?
Beg your pardon?
Let's begin.
Yes. Thus, A and the waking state, U, the dream state, and Ma, the deep sleep state, and the silence, Turiya, all four together comprise the totality of the manifestation Atman, Brahman as syllable. From Atman, the individual self, to the Brahman, the universal self. Om pervades all the states, all the four states. Just as the sound Ma manifests itself, grows, becomes transformed in its vocal quality, and finally subsides into the silence that follows, so do the four states or components of beings. They are transformations of the one experience which taken together constitute the totality of its modes, whether regarded from the microscopic or the macroscopic point of view. This brings us back to the chart.
Please do try to connect this with the charts that have gone earlier.
It's very important because as Gurudev is reading to us, the chart becomes more and more clear. I'll read further. The A and the U, the first and the second matra. The A and U are as essential to sound as Ma, or the silence against which the sound appears. Because if the silence is not there, how will sound come? Something can be heard only when there is silence.
In order to know sound, you have to know silence too, or silence has to be there in order to know the sound.
Just like in a movie hall, so that the film is projected on something, that constant screen has to be there.
Substratum.
It is the word called substratum. Moreover, it would be a mistake to say that Om did not exist while silence reigned, for it would be still potentially present even in the silence. The actual manifestation of the syllable, on the other hand, is fleeting and evanescent, means it goes away very quickly, whereas the silence abides. This is how the universe is. Sound is coming and going. It's only transient. But silence is always there. This silence indeed is present elsewhere during a local pronunciation of Om, that is to say, by analogy, transcendentally during the creation, manifestation and dissolution of the universe. How beautifully Gurudev has brought a Om, and he has brought the entire creation manifestation and the dissolution of this manifested world to compare. If we, while doing chanting of Om, get all these in the mind, how can the mind go anywhere? It will be perfectly focused. Let's read further. It may be asked as to why this particular word Om should be chosen as the word representative of thought, out of which the universe has become manifest. The answer may be given in Swami Vivekananda's own words. I am reminded of Gurudev. Somebody had asked him in America, but why should it be Om? Gurudev said, why not? You don't call it Om, you call it Boom, Boom. But there is not any other word in the universe which is fully capable of representing God. And we will be seeing this just now.
Why it is Om?
Yes, why Om only? It could be anything else. But why this A-U-M, when pronounced together, called Om? Swami Vivekananda, in his own words, he is saying, this Om is the only possible symbol which covers the whole ground. And there is none other like it. The sporter is the material of all words, yet it is not any definite word in its fully formed state. Om, complete, is a complete word by itself, but still there is no any sentence around it. It is so lovely. That is to say, if all the particularities which distinguish one word from another be removed, all the particularities. Jaise Rajshree, you had explained, Rajshree?
There's a beautiful example, I thought, to understand this. Now we all know that matter is made of atoms and molecules. Now just imagine for a moment that these atoms and molecules, of which all matter is made, is just sort of floating in space. It doesn't have any particular form, but it is that material of which everything else is made. But right now it is just floating about, knowing that it is the material which will make everything. So this is comparable to spota. And once when it gets the form, it comes from that spota. So the material of every form is that spota.
This is why. So we read further. Then what remains will be the spota. Therefore, this spota is called the Nada Brahma, the sound Brahman. Now, every word symbol intended to express the inexpressible spota will so particularize it that it will no longer be spota. That which particularizes it the least and yet at the same time most approximately expresses its nature will be the truest symbol. Therefore, and this is the Om and the Om only, because these three letters A, U and Ma pronounced in combination as Om can alone be generalized symbol of all possible sounds. How wonderful!
It's very scientifically explained.
And this is further explained by Gurudev now. A letter A is the least differentiated of all sounds. Like I explained yesterday, without any effort can be spoken.
That is the reason it is the first alphabet of all languages.
Again, all articulate sounds are pronounced in the space within the mouth, beginning with the root of the tongue and ending at the lips. The throat sound is A and the lips is Ma. See, when you say the lips have to come together. But to say A, the lips have to part because the sound comes from the throat.
So sound begins from the base of the throat where A comes from, and it ends at the closing of your lips where Ma comes from. So everything that you say
comes between these two sounds only.
Yes.
The throat sound A and ma is the last lip sound, and oo exactly represents the rolling forward of the impulse which begins at the root of the tongue, continuing till it ends in the lips.
So the complete continuity, right from where sound begins to where it finally ends. So that word.
If properly pronounced, this Om will represent in itself the whole phenomenon of sound production, and no other word can do this, and this therefore is the fittest symbol of the spoter, which is the real meaning of Om. And as the symbol can never be separated from the thing signified, the Om and the spoter are one. And as the spoter, being the finer side of the manifested universe, is nearer to God and is indeed the first manifestation of the divine wisdom, this Om is truly symbolic God.
Spoter comes from the origin. So it is the closest to that consciousness. That is why it is as if the consciousness itself.
Om thus represents the entire manifested world and the unmanifested, and also that which lies beyond both the manifest and the unmanifest, the Brahman, which is the changeless substratum for the changing objects of the world of expressions, of experiences. To every mantra, Om, the Pranava, is added on. Without Om, no sacred chant has its power. Just as a living body has no vitality when life-giving breath is not flowing through its veins, so too a mantra has no life in it without the addition of the Pranava. So beautifully, once again, the analogy is given, Rajshree. One has to understand that everything that has been spoken is about us, the microcosm. And then Gurudev gets the macrocosm in the picture and says, you see, the microcosm, you, and the macrocosm, him, are one. In Hindi, Muhavra, it is said, just as Anda is like Brahmanda, Pinda and Brahmanda are one. Vedantic students generally practice the repetition of and the meditation on the symbol provided by Pranava. This is called Pranava Upasana.
Also, if you all see that the first diagram which is given over there, which tells us where is Om, and there is the macrocosm and the microcosm, which had a spelling mistake, and then
we had sent them the corrected version.
Please see this diagram once again, and I would truly request all of you to carefully read this chapter and try to understand what you are reading, and most of it will be explained to you automatically, and as you read further also things will get clearer and clearer.
So, up till now we have spoken of Om. What is the significance of Om? What is the origin of Om? And in principle, what is Om? The power of Om has been expressed. Finally, before we had ended the last verse, it has been explained to us that Om is like the life-giving principle in the human body. Similarly, if Om is not in a mantra or that incantation has no power. We are coming inches closer to Gāyatrī mantra. Let us go slowly closer to it. Let's read further. Om represents in itself, Om represents in its silent significance both the manifest and the unmanifest, which together constitute the entire subtle and gross worlds. The word Loka in Sanskrit is generally translated as the world, but in its etymological meaning, it signifies a field of experience.
Please be very clear. Loka to most of us is understood as another world, Swarga Loka, so as if there is another world over there. But no, in scriptures that is not what Loka means. Loka means a field of experience. Let us understand it further.
And this is very necessary because we are Indians, most of us are Hindus, and we use these words Atma, Loka, Maya, and we have our own understanding of it.
Sure.
But this is why Gurudev is explaining, taking that effort to explain so carefully that do understand the real meaning of Loka according to what is explained. We move ahead. So Loka means field of experience. The entire possibility of experience in life has been terraced. Terraced means upon each other by the rishis into 14 lokas. For our easy understanding, Gurudev has said worlds. 7 higher lokas, 7 lower worlds. There are 3 worlds in which a limited ego center comes to play its game of reincarnation and repeated deaths. Who is that limited being? Us.
Ourselves.
It is us. They are 1. Bhur Loka, the physical earth. Bhuvar Loka, the world next to the physical and closely connected with it, but constituted of finer matters. And finally the third, Swarga Loka, the heavenly world. Beyond these are the 4 other worlds wherein the ego comes to move about and enjoy in its higher evolutionary life. And they are called Mahar, Jana, Tapo and Satya. If any one of you have heard the Gāyatrī mantra with its Bij mantra in beginning mantra means the Dhyana Shloka. All these 7 lokas are said. It is said aloud about these 7 lokas. We will come to that. In the Hindu literature, we also find conceptions of other worlds as Indraloka, Chandraloka, Suryaloka, Pitraloka, etc., which are special realms of experiences located within the above regions. Below these 7 worlds, there is yet another set of 7 worlds called the Talas.
Tala.
Sorry?
Tala.
Talas. Tala. They are named as Patala, Mahatala, Rasatala, Talatalam, Sutalam, Vitalam and Atalam. We have all heard about the first one. Patal, right?
Absolutely. So it is now clear to us that in the realm of experiences, there are 14 such realms or lokas or worlds. And these are the coming towards the heavens, or let us say the above in a terraced manner, and there are ones which are below. And every jiva or every human being, you and me, are essentially connected with 3, which is Bhur, Bhuva and Swaha, coming from the grossest to the subtlest. Bhur, Bhuva and Swaha. I think it's enough for us to know this right now. And we also now have understood that there are 14 worlds which are there. Some other worlds like Indraloka, Chandraloka, Suryaloka and Pitraloka are within the realms of the higher lokas. Shall we continue?
So, we are going to conclude with the last paragraph as an information. Tomorrow we'll explain about all this and then move into the Gāyatrī mantra. Of these 14 worlds, Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, denoting the three worlds, are called the Vyaharati. It is beautiful to understand Vyaharati. We will do that. In the Gāyatrī mantra, when these Vyaharatis are chanted, the meditator can visualize the three worlds as rising from, existing in, and disappearing into Om. He can subjectively identify them with the waking, dream, and deep sleep conditions of the consciousness, transcending which extends the realm of the infinite. All of them are represented in the symbol Om. In this sense, the Vyaharati in the Gayatri represents in one sweep the entire world of the subjective, the objective experiences of man.
So, how beautifully everything is connected to each other. We are going to see this very clearly tomorrow also.
We speak of details, that in the modern age, man is so detailed about everything. Imagine to have a breakfast, we have a list of things. We can't do our breakfast without making a list. I have to go to the market, I need a list. I have to go to the bank, need a list. Everywhere list. Imagine the rishis of the Lord. They were so organized, their minds were so clear that they didn't need any list. Everything was within. Why? Because they were very natural and in tune with the universe. The whole aim and goal of learning Kindle life, Gurudev has guided us so that we become as close to our own nature as possible.
Honestly, what we are actually doing is learning how to go close to our real identity and real selves. One thing connecting to the other. And tomorrow, let us see the three lokas that come into the Gayatri mantra. One of the most auspicious mantras, or not one of the most auspicious mantras, which Sri Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita, as I've said earlier, has spoken that among mantras, I am Gayatri. And tomorrow will come that auspicious day when we will begin to know this Gayatri. On this note, we take leave for today. Everybody, Hari Om, let's end with prayers.
Om Asito ma satkamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma mritam gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Hari Om to all. Hari Om.